Hi, everybody. This is Tim Whalen of MCS Group here for another monthly interview. We have Raul Peralta from KALEIDOSCOPE, CEO and founder. Um, Raul, really happy that you joined us. I know, like I said, I know you're a busy guy, so happy for you to be here and excited to talk to you today.
No, thanks for the invite. I thought it's pretty great to talk to you again, and yeah, it'll be great to have a nice conversation.
Great. So I just want to start off with just kind of your experience and how you became a founder. I think always kind of interested to see kind of when you chose to make that leap and what that looked like.
Yeah, no, I mean it was interesting. I used to be a member of an original startup back on early 2000s called 10K Wizard. It was kind of small back in the time. I mean, but it was pretty popular everywhere else. And we did that for about 8-10 years. That was great. Went to Morningstar afterwards. That was good. But then after that, we kind of tinkered a little bit with big data, big things. And so at some point, we decided that we wanted to create a company that kind of got us back into SEC filings, products, and things like that. And myself and the other co-founder just talked about it over and over, and we just said, you know what, might as well just do it. And so we just jumped in, and yeah, it's been like everything else, it's a learning experience. It's been fun. But it's, it comes with tons and tons of challenges. But yeah, we, somewhere around 2018, we decided that we wanted to jump into the market and try to create a different type of experience of searching.
That's great. So how long did you kind of kick that around for? I imagine it started off with, what we should do, and then kind of go from there.
It took us a couple of years. I mean, we founded the company somewhere around 2017, 2018. Before that, it took us about 6 months to a year of kind of like, this is where we should go. And even when we founded the company, we had a different idea overall of what we wanted to do. We thought it's like, oh, we'll do more of a social monitoring, social kind of things. And we play around with that idea over and over. And then we kind of slowly started transitioning back into kind of what KALEIDOSCOPE is right now. But yeah, I think it was a solid 2 years of just back and forth, trying things out, playing with the technology had changed a little bit since our original company. So yeah, I think it's about a couple of years of just going back and forth.
That's awesome. And so I definitely want to get into that pivot. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Could you just give an overview of kind of what KALEIDOSCOPE is right now, who the end user is, and kind of what your mission is as it stands today?
Sure. So KALEIDOSCOPE, we focus on 3 different end users. It could be more, but we focus on 3. We do a lot of work on the investor relations side. We power quite a bit of the SEC data portion of public companies. They need to have those to be in compliance. So that's kind of what our original purpose was. We saw a need there, and we kind of aim to fulfill it. But then the other end users that we have are legal firms and accounting firms. They use us quite a bit for research, whether they're looking for agreements on SEC filings or things like that. And then, as you mentioned, we recently kind of pivoted a little bit on the educational and the nonprofit market. They're always looking for high net worth individuals, and we saw a need there, and so we kind of opened that vertical / kind of pivot in a sense. So
that's great. And how quickly did you recognize that? Was it something that someone brought to your attention, or you kind of stumbled upon, or how did you kind of identify?
Both, really. So it was actually kind of interesting. We got one of our customers to use our platform. And, it's an Ivy League university, and they loved it. They loved our product, but they kind of went like, it'd be great if you guys could change the way that you present the data instead of being company-centric to more people-centric. And we thought that was kind of interesting, but we thought, well, that requires a lot of extraction, a lot of things for us to pull out of filings, and I don't know if that's even possible. And we kept playing around with it a lot, and we just kept going back, and they kept asking us for more stuff, and they kind of had an idea of what they wanted, and they just kept feeding us those ideas.
Yep.
And so we slowly kept looking at it, and it's like, oh, well, that worked. And then we tried something, oh, well, that worked as well. And so then all of a sudden we got a collection of data, and we're like, well, maybe we could put a front end on this. And so at that point we saw, well, let's try other universities and other places that they might actually want this data. And sure enough, we presented to them, and they're like, oh, yeah, if you can present it this way, you should. And so we kind of stumbled, but based with some guidance from that initial university, and here we are. We just kind of started that vertical. We kind of pivoted mostly to that just because there was a lot of need, and that industry kind of required this kind of particular tool. And we just, like I said, we lucked out on it because we got a lot of feedback. We stumbled on it because we were able to get this university, and they were able to kind of guide us along. So that's kind of how I started. It's a weird way, but we eventually found our way to this vertical.
I mean, I think it's pretty smart to, instead of just saying no right off the bat when they asked you if you could present it a certain way, to kind of say, you know what, let's try it, let's see what we can do, and then that kind of created a template for how you could approach other prospective clients.
Oh, for sure. I think it changed the way that the company, in a way, it changed the way that the company did things. We were very focused on the research market. It's like, we bring data, we allow you to search it and all that kind of stuff. But it changed the way that we do things because it highlighted, one, the technology that is available right now. And we can dive into that later. But two, we were able to transition more into kind of an extraction kind of a company now, where we do research, but we're also extracting a lot of stuff from these contents, these massive documents. And so, it changed us, and it was, it was good. It's been good for us.
That's awesome. And how important was that pivot? I think, when we were talking, it's people get so stubborn of their original idea sometimes, and they don't maybe see opportunities, or they refuse to bend to those opportunities. Was it difficult to identify it as, hey, this could be a new thing, or, how quickly did that transition happen?
No, I mean, it's, it took us a little while. I mean, so it took us, well, it wasn't that hard for us to transition. I think, we pivoted already a couple of times, right? When we started the company, as I mentioned, we wanted to do something else, and we saw the need for the SEC filings, so we pivoted back into SEC filings. Here, we saw the potential early on, and as soon as we were able to see that we could provide the data, we made the pivot fairly quickly. We allocated all our resources to it, and we just went that way. For us, I think it's important to be able to pivot. One of the advantages that we have is that we're small. We're a small company, and allows us to be able to pivot fairly quickly to whatever the demand is. And that's kind of the things that we say often is, we're small and nimble, and allows us to innovate faster, we think, and allows us to pivot if we see a need. And we saw the need. I mean, once we started presenting the product to a couple of universities, they loved it, and we're like, we got to go all in. And so, it's important for us to be able to pivot quickly.
And do you think there are major factors? I know you mentioned size. Are there any other major factors that would prevent that?
Oh, I think so. We've been fortunate that we didn't, and I'm not trying to say that it's a bad thing, but we haven't raised any VC money at all. Everything has been bootstrapped in a sense. So for us, the final saying, it's really myself and the other co-founder. Yeah. And so whenever we want to go, and whenever we present it to each other, it's like, hey, there's this other possibility. Let's explore it. If we both agree on it, we look at it, it's like, let's just go all in. And so there's no delay on that, right? We don't have to go out and present. We don't have to ask. I don't say we don't have to ask permission, but the sense of it.
Right.
It's just
no bottleneck, right?
Yeah, there's no bottleneck, right? And usually when our sales and marketing people bring us ideas, and they go, look, we need this, but it could be a pivot. We don't just dismiss it. We listen. We go through the process, and if it's great, we just go through it.
Yeah, that's a real blessing. Just being able to kind of go with your gut and not look back.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And, you go with your gut. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it works. There's sometimes it hasn't, but I'm like, right. But you have to have the flexibility to pivot. Right. If you can't pivot, then by the time you go through the process and you pivot, the opportunity may be gone. And so, like on this industry, we needed to pivot quickly because there's a niche. There's a demand, and we want to capture the demand now rather than later.
And you mentioned earlier too, when we first met, that it's not just universities, right? There's some nonprofit stuff and a couple of different end users there for the same product.
Right, correct. I mean, so we, obviously the universities kind of crafted this, and so we've been going after most universities, but we're starting to make progress on nonprofits. also for profits, which is consulting firms that universities or other nonprofits use them to be able to find these individuals. And so, yeah, we've been starting to open those up more and having better success on attracting those companies. And ultimately, I think, it's not another pivot, but it's kind of a smaller transition into trying to also target more of the healthcare nonprofits as well. They require different kind of data for them to find the right individuals. And so that's kind of something that's stuff that we're working on right now as to how do we make our existing product match what they're looking for as well. So it's another small little pivot, but it's all within the same context.
Yeah, almost like refining, just an ongoing process.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that brings me to kind of the data point of it. I know kind of we met through a FinTech Sandbox event, providing data to folks. And so the importance of data, but more importantly, I think to start that ecosystem and the support of a group like that, or incubators, fellows, startup founders that are kind of going through similar things or have in the past. Did you lean on an ecosystem at all when you were starting?
Yeah, I mean, the sandbox was huge for us, the FinTech Sandbox, because right early on, again, that's I said earlier that we're bootstrapped, which is great, but there's challenges with being bootstrapped. And so while we were prototyping our product, we needed all this infrastructure. Well, the Sandbox was graciously that they accepted us, and they provided some of the credits and things like that, so we can prototype some of our products. So that was huge. The second part is the data part. It is hard for a small startup to try to sometimes make the connections for the data, and not just the connections, but try to maybe get some of the preferred pricing, I guess you can call it that way. But it was kind of hard for us to acquire some of the data we needed. And so the Sandbox was instrumental for us to get some of the right connections, some of the right links, for us to be able to power our research tool, to be able to provide our prospective users what they needed. So, an ecosystem is definitely huge, and especially as a startup, it was exactly what we needed. Don't know where we'd be if we didn't have it early on. Probably would have taken us a lot longer to get where we are, but definitely helped us quite a bit. So yeah, an ecosystem is huge.
And I think that's what I think somebody said it in an event at New York FinTech Week, that it takes a village. They always say that to raise a child, and kind of takes a village to have a startup and bounce ideas off each other and get a leg up here and there.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I remember going to the first Sandbox meeting. They had FinTech Week in Boston, and I remember going. This is pre-COVID, and it was huge because we had, we obviously had our prototype. We had just started working with some of the data and infrastructure, but being able to ask questions, being able to ping people within the community was a big deal for us. And so yeah, you need that community. You need that village. Whether that the village is providing you data or infrastructure, or to just some type of mentoring, right? Because at some point you need this you need this help. And obviously for us, the industry kind of had changed quite a bit since we were on the industry on the early 2000s. So we needed to understand kind of where their thinking was, what kind of needs or bottlenecks were there. And so for us, it was the whole community has been great for us. It's been it was a blessing back in the day, and still is.
And I guess getting more to that data, I did want to touch too is kind of AI becomes more prevalent. Having different data sets, accurate data sets. That I'm sure is really come to the forefront for you guys. You guys have some new kind of offerings and some new features, coming out. I just want to kind of talk about that a little bit and what's to come.
Yeah. So, I mean, data sets are huge, right? And we live now in a place where you just got, the more data you have, the better, right? And so, if you want to talk Sandbox, it was great because we got some data back then. But now that, as we mentioned, we're onto this new pivot, they require more and more data. And so for us, it's more along the lines of, we have this unstructured data, but now we need to be able to extract more knowledge out of it, more metadata from it. So that's kind of what along with the pivot, we also decided that we needed to start kind of having our own AI system in-house. which has been a big it's taken a lot of work on our end to be able to get it. We prototype early on with OpenAI and got some great results and be able to extract some additional data points and how would we use our AI system if we were to have one. And now we just, we have our own Vortex system that we call it Vortex. It's our AI system that where we now have our models that are currently extracting data. We send pieces of information, parts of a filing, and we extract more out of it. And then the advantage of it is now we can also teach our model some of the data that we've been collecting for a while, and so that way we can get better data. Because like you said, AI and models are great. You can extract some data, but you're going to have some false data at some point. That's just, you just have to live with it. And the only way that you can kind of reduce that amount to a place where you're feeling comfortable with it is by having training your models with your own data. And that to us was important. It still is, right? To be able to just train it and then keep extracting more data, and then then you pipe it right back in and you just keep going. It's an ongoing process. I think it's going to be ongoing for a long time. But yeah, it's important. You need to have good data, otherwise it's useless.
Sure. And how long did it take so you guys were playing around with OpenAI, see how much it could help you, from kind of realizing that to where you are now? How long was that process?
We started on OpenAI like somewhere last year, close around this time during summer. We started playing around with it. Honestly, one of our junior developers just kind of had this idea of, hey, we're extracting this thing with patterns, which is great, but I've been sending it through OpenAI just for fun. And then it's like, and it's like, here's some of the stuff that I'm coming out. And I was like, wow, sure, that sounds great. We'll increase the limit, try it out with bigger data, and then get back to me. And he did. He kept coming back with better and better data. And I'm like, okay, well, what about this? And I just kept throwing stuff. And so for like 2-3 months, we kept playing around with OpenAI, and it just kept coming back with good results. And then somewhere around October, November, I think it's October, we decided that we were going to have our own in-house system. And we did that for a good 3 months. So I think somewhere around January, that's when our Vortex system came online. And we're still tweaking it. I think we're on version 3 or 4. But it's getting faster. It's extracting data better and faster. The first iteration, we could take out some data, and it would just take like a minute for just one little piece of data. And we're like, well, this is not going to work. And so now we're at a point that it's just, we're sending so much data and it's taking seconds to extract, and we're adding more servers and things like that. But yeah, so I think overall it's been maybe a year, maybe 6 months since we decided to go in-house, maybe a little bit longer. And yeah, it's so far it's working well, but it's a work in progress.
And what is the result for your end user with the Vortex system? Just everything cleaner and faster and more efficient, or?
Yeah, cleaner data, faster data. One of the things that we were struggling with the OpenAI model was that, at some point there's limits through OpenAI. You can only send so much data, and we could get in so much requests. And so now we're able to extract more and more data. We're, not to get too specific into the SEC filings, which are a mess, but, there's footnotes, there's all these other things. And before we kind of had to pick and choose what we wanted to send to the AI. Now we're just pretty much, if anyone says, hey, I like to extract this on this particular section, we just say, okay, just dump it in. And so we can extract much more data, and definitely it's cleaner, better data than it was back on when we started. So yeah.
Awesome. SEC filings, this is kind of off topic, I guess, but are those reliable because they're legally mandated? So everything has to be correct in there. I'm sure there's probably cases where it's not, but is it more safe than other sets just because it's kind of legally?
Yeah, they're mandated to, all public companies are mandated to file SEC filings, right? And they're yeah, they have to be accurate, and because one, they're inspected by the SEC, and two, the investors are obviously combing through those things like crazy. The SEC filings are interesting because they can be rather large, right? You can have an annual report that it's 200 pages long, and most of that document in itself, it's not really important. It's a lot of lawyer talk in a sense.
Okay.
But there are certain sections that if you know what sections to look at, that's how you actually can determine what the company's future is, or like where the risks are, and you can kind of play around with it a little bit. So the entire filing itself is not great, but there are some parts in it that that gives you the right amount of data, the actual insights of the company. And so those are the ones that you want to be looking at all the time.
Gotcha. So I'm sure that takes to find where that is and where that resides. I mean, that must take years of constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the data itself, the filings are just such a mess. And there's so many of them. You know, we our chief marketing person, she's great. She's been on SEC filings forever. And every once in a while she comes in and says, "Hey, did you know there's such and such on this filing?" And I'm like, I didn't even know that filing existed. And so, they keep releasing filings, they keep adding things to filings. And so we're always constantly learning these filings. Especially lately, there's a lot of mandated information by the SEC that needs to be disclosed in proxies and things like that. So they're adding more and more. And so they just, if you know where to look for, there's just so much data that you're going to find there. So yeah, no, they're great. You just got to look for it. You just got to know where to look for.
Right. And it seems like it's never ending, which is great too. I mean, just you'll never perfect it. So it's great.
No, it's never ending. They always have to disclose it, right? Because, if you want to stay public, you have to make sure that you're in compliance. So you have to disclose everything. And yeah, there's a lot of, they will always be there. And it's, we have data all the way to 1994. So it's a couple terabytes. I mean, it's like close to 40 terabytes now of data. Wow. So yeah, it's a lot.
And so just to kind of go back, I guess, a little bit, I think I'm always interested to see kind of those when you and your co-founder, you start everything, and then it gets to the point of hiring, and you're making those first, maybe 1 to 8, employees 1 to 8, where maybe it's inside your network, or maybe you're asking people who they know, but it's critical because if one bad hire could set you back a few months, and then you got to get someone else up to speed. Just curious on how you kind of saw those first few and how you approached it.
No, so for our first hires, it honestly was in network. We leveraged a lot of the people that we kind of worked before on the previous company, that we knew that they had some experience on the SEC filings. It was important for us, only because it was our go-to market, and the industry that we were targeting back then, which we still do, the legal firms and the accounting firms, they require deep knowledge of filings. So we definitely needed to hire people that had that knowledge. And then it comes to the developer side, those were challenging because, one, SEC filings is not a hot topic. Two, to try to find developers that may know about SEC filings, so it's hard. And so we leveraged some of our network. And then based on that, some of the people that we've hired, we've asked them, it's like, well, use their network as well to kind of expand. So, but yeah, the first hires were all just in network. We needed to know who we were working with, just because it's the level of complexity of the company that we wanted to start, the filings and things like that. We needed to stay in network for the beginning. Yeah,
sure. And did you find that for that it was all just skill set? People that had that knowledge of SEC filings? Is it buy-in? People that believe in what you're doing? A mix of both?
A little bit of mix of both. Yeah, because it had to be some buy-in, right? Obviously, they needed to see the future in the company, because we were asking them to make some big sacrifices, right? Just startup, you don't know where it's going to be heading, right? So there was there needed to be some level of trust of the founders, myself and the other co-founder. They needed to know that we weren't just going to fold 6 months in, right? But there had to be some trust. Then there had to be some knowledge on it. They needed to understand some of it. And then some of our developers, they had no idea of the SEC filings, but they believed on our co-founder. He's our CTO as well. He has a lot of technical expertise. He's been doing big data forever, I think all the way into like the 1990s. And so he knows, he has a lot of knowledge that he likes to pass on. And so they needed to be comfortable with him, and he needed to be comfortable with them. And so they believed in him, and they believed in the company, and that's how they followed us along.
Gotcha. It's always, to me, I love hearing those stories because it's so you got to be right. So it's, how you approach that is interesting.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be right, and it's a tricky situation. Like I said, it's because you are asking them to trust you, and you're asking them to say, look, we believe this, and they have to see, the path of the company, where do we project to be in 5 years, 3, 5, 10 years from now, and they need to believe in the team, and for us, we need to believe that that we don't micromanage. We don't like to micromanage. We needed to understand it's like, look, we're small and we're going to be nimble. So when we need to pivot, you need to understand that we need to pivot quickly, and you need to be able to adapt to the new specs, the new changes, and that could be on our sales force or on our development force. We all need to pivot quickly, and we all need to have that mentality that once we pivot, we all pivot, and the whole team just continues working as one. So,
Which could be a problem too if people are 3-4 months into something, and then you're going to pivot away from what they've been spending time on. I'm sure you need to have somebody that's willing to do that.
Oh, for sure. Because back in the day, not back in the day, but before we did like the last pivot, we were heavily into adding additional features for like the legal market, and we were hard set on it. And then at some point, we kind of not had to say, well, we're not going to do them, but we kind of had put this other market as a higher priority. Like, well, that's great, and we're going to continue working on that, but I need you to prioritize X, Y, Z, because that's we see that opportunity, and you just have to trust us that it's there, and we'll come back to that. And I know it sucks to leave 4 months for it to work, but it will get developed eventually. We just have to deprioritize a little bit. But yeah, it's important.
Some pushback when you come to them with that, or
not entirely. So I've been fortunate that everyone on the team kind of, I don't want to say trust us, but they we lay out the work, we lay out the vision, and whatever objections they have, they're all able to kind of bring them up, and it kind of helps us kind of determine, maybe make changes to the vision as to where we need to go. And so it's not a pivot that myself and Kia, our co-founder, does on our own. We make the decision, but then we bring the team, and then we go through it, and we take their objections, and then we try to model our vision as a new vision, and this is where we're going to go. But there's always some grumblings here and there. But
sure.
once you start seeing the progress, everybody's like, oh, that's what it was, and they're all excited about it. But yeah, there were a few, but they're all excited now.
And then the last topic I wanted to hit on, and I think people are probably sick of talking about it, but the effect of kind of COVID on small businesses, the market in general, how that was navigated, especially where we're at now, where big boom after COVID, things are kind of going like crazy, and then kind of this weird pushback. Was it tough for you to navigate that? Obviously unprecedented, but what was kind of your journey through that?
Oh, it was tough. It's we started the company in 2018, 2019. We're kind of starting to find our footing. We're finding kind of the direction we want to go. 2020, we started really great. We're like thinking, oh, this is the year. This is the year that we make that leap.
Yeah.
And sure enough, even up till March, we're making great progress. And then here comes March, April, and everything just dies. Our sales went down to almost nothing. So at that point, we had to reassess. It's like, okay, well, we need to obviously continue to figure out revenue. Obviously, that we had clients, and luckily we were able to continue with those clients. But new clients, that was a challenge. And so it was a little it was tough. And so one of the things that we decided to do, we actually decided that year, we were going to take it as a year of advancing our infrastructure and advancing our technology. So 2020, we kind of spent a lot of time just working on revamping our search engine, revamping our extraction systems, being us ready for whenever the whole COVID thing was out. We knew that things were going to pick up again. And there were a lot of requests and things that people have been asking us to do. So we just kind of decided that we were going to take it as a developmental kind of a year.
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of 2020 just working on the technology aspect of the company. Again, it was not the greatest thing, because we much prefer to be working on getting new clients and verticals and things like that. But
right.
it was just not there. so that's kind of the way that we decided to navigate that year. Once the market started changing, and you can see some of the clients coming back to us, and budgets, they were frozen for 6-9 months. So
Right.
it's really hard for us to, obviously that's what we call new revenue. It was hard. But then once those things started coming back around, we were in a much better position, infrastructure-wise, development-wise, to tackle those, which I think is why we were able to make pivots as easily, because we knew where the technology on our side was, and we knew where we needed to go. So we didn't have to build up a lot of infrastructure and things like that, because I won't say that we foresaw the future, but we kind of got ahead of it by just being prepared for it. And so, yeah, I mean, so 2020 was tough, but it was tough for everyone. So, we're just fortunate that we were able to just advance some of these other initiatives that we had.
Yeah, and credit to you guys. I mean, you could kind of bang your head against the wall and just throw up your hands, or no, you know what? We'll just focus on this. We'll focus on our foundation, and so that when everything does pick up, we don't have to spend time doing that. So I think wasn't a year. It doesn't sound like it was a year wasted. So
no, it wasn't a year wasted. There was a lot of banging against the wall, but but there was no. It's it wasn't a year wasted. We wish we weren't doing it, to be honest, but I think so was everybody else. But no, it was we after figuring out what are we gonna do, we thought, well, the only sensible thing is we got all this other stuff that we need to do, so might as well just do it now, and let's ride this out and see how well it goes. So we're fortunate that we were able to ride it out.
And do you think the kind of the reverberations from all that is back in order, as far as on the client end side, and new verticals and new clients and people willing to kind of take a leap on you again? Is that the worst behind us? Is kind of smooth sailing now, or are you still kind of seeing people hesitant?
No, I think on our end there, it is definitely, I don't want to say it's smooth sailings, but it's definitely back to normal, or the place where we saw pre-COVID, where the opportunities were there. Obviously budgets. I think one of the things that's come out is because of the last 3 years, I think it's been also, budgets has also changed a little bit. So there's still some questions on some companies about their budget cycles. Maybe their budgets are now smaller than they were pre-COVID, and so those are some of the things that we've seen. But aside from that, I think it's I don't want to say it's business as usual, but it's pretty close to it. We like on this vertical, we've been able to approach a lot of universities that back 3 years ago they just won't have the resources, or they won't even be willing to look at us. And so yeah, definitely, I think it's getting. No, I think it's there. It's not pre-2020, but it's as close as it's gonna get.
Yeah, kind of a careful optimism.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think no one is. Yeah, I think that the black cloud is kind of gone, and so I think they're more willing to make investments into companies and into some of their tools that they use. So yeah, I think for us, I think it was late 2023 that we kind of saw that it was just everything was picking up to the way it was, and things were picking up back to normal. And so I think it took a little while, but slowly but surely it's getting there. It's there now, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I think. That's what everyone's hoping. But I like it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, again, it's not the same, but it's there in a different kind of aspect, I guess.
And just so last thing, where can people find out more about Kaleidoscope? Get in touch with you. Best way to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously our website is kscope.io. We really wanted to get Kaleidoscope, but they someone else has Kaleidoscope. So our website is kscope.io. My information is there, and any one of our team. You can always find me on LinkedIn. But I don't know my LinkedIn profile. But anyways, it's
don't search it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can search for me there, or it's on our website. But yeah, it's kscope.io is the best way to get a hold of us.
Perfect. Well, Raul, I appreciate it. Founder of Kaleidoscope, thanks so much, and we'll talk soon.